And good. Hi guys.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here on your channel, Nikola. This is the first of many sessions, I believe.
The honor is all mine. I'm here happy to welcome to my channel the one and only the legend herself, International Master Anna Rudolf. And I am
That's a way
very
too kind of an introduction, Nikola. You're the legend here, not me.
I tend to say that you have been the legend and a bigger legend than that for much longer than I have been associated with Twitch. And okay, so we are hearing that your microphone is a little bit low, so I'm gonna boost it
Oh,
a
my
little bit.
microphone.
Yeah, I'm gonna see. Is this better now? Hey, Lisachu94, thank you for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Let me know if my microphone is better or if I can try to do
Yeah.
something on my end.
Okay.
Lisa, thanks for the follow. I'm happy to see some of my community showing up already. Kitten Eve and Famous Wizard 2511. Thanks a lot, guys. Chris, that hello to everybody. Chris with the Nikola emote. I like to see that. I like to see that, Chris.
Hey, Hedgehog, thank you for the subscription. Thank you to Tier 1 subscription. It's good to see you guys. So, by way of introduction, here is this is hey, thank you, Elon, to gifting a sub to Anna. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. I'm
And it
gonna
just
spam my new emotes now.
yeah, and it occurs to me that if you haven't been a VIP in my channel, you are now.
Oh, thank you so
So
much.
and I have, by the way, this is an introductory stream to a series, and I have always enjoyed the old series with John Urschel, which was John Urschel Learns Chess, and when, John, and I was a regular viewer, and I really, really, really always enjoyed that particular stream. And I was pretty sad when uh, John had other obligations and that stream stopped. So we are here trying to recreate the magic of that show, and I'm obviously not John Urschel. I cannot even pretend to be, but I don't think that pupil itself is important. It's the instructor, and we have the instructor here with Anna, and so.
Thank you so much, Nicola. I'm always happy to hear those thoughts about the show we had with John, and obviously we are not trying to recreate exactly the same show, but we will have a similar style show, and it's gonna be about Nicola's chess career and his improvements. I'm gonna try to work around Nicola's strengths and weaknesses at chess.
And I admitted to Anna as we were preparing for this that I'm slightly nervous to see what Anna is about to throw at me, and I hope to live up to her standards. Oh yes, and speaking of standards, in the honor of Anna, I'm actually wearing her signature hoodie, which is actually very comfortable. And I'm also here drinking, and I'm not drinking vodka, I'm drinking water from Anna's signature mug, which I have to say I actually use rather regularly. I think I've wore it on stream already once. So
Thank you so much for all the support, Nicola. It's crazy how you also dressed up for the occasion.
yes. All right. So, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Welcome to Famous Wizard. Welcome to my dear friend Hedgehog 1963. Welcome to Psilus. And welcome to 2511. And thank you for the gifted subs and the follows. It's always good to see you guys here. So, yes, as Famous Wizard just said, a couple of tomatoes.
And Hedgehog with the Anna Heart emote. I think Hedgehog has been one of uh, those amazing followers who was really happy on Twitter too about this show, and he posted about he was really looking forward to today and the inaugural session of Nicola Learns Chess.
Okay. All right. So, should we have the analysis board ready? So let's. I think I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be.
Sure, let's get started. So we're gonna be focusing on middle games. for the first few sessions. Um, that's because Nikola seems to be very comfortable in his opening. So I'm not going to question your opening knowledge, but I'm going to ask you a few questions about a particular line that the middle game positions of today are arising from. So we will have a bit of an opening discussion about that from your perspective on what how you see those openings, but mainly focus on the middle games and complex positions where it may not be that clear cut how to strike. As you said, you think you have a good understanding of attacking positions when we were talking about like how you can go for the kill with sacrifices and just you can beat way higher rated opponents too in attacking positions like that. But what I'm going to try to focus on in the first sessions are middle game positions where it's about the attack but may not be that straightforward how to hit. I
Okay.
hope this sounds good.
Sounds exactly what I actually need. So yes, it sounds great.
So the
Good.
opening, we are looking at this game from White's perspective, and it's gonna be an opening line that I believe Nikola plays, and that's why I chose this variation against the Najdorf for
Oh, my
today.
favorite Adam's attack. Thank you, Anna. That's yes.
I'm not exactly sure on how you play each variation, so I apologize if it's not exactly the same, but I wanted to prepare something with the Adams attack. And if you could briefly tell the viewers what you like about this attack and what are the general ideas.
Sure. So Adam's attack was something that I came by because I used to, frankly, hate playing as white against Najdorf Sicilian. And
You're not the only one. I think Nikolai still do.
that is, and Najdorf used to be the bane of my existence. So what they really, the idea behind Adam's attack is to uh, I've discovered that most black players are less familiar with Adam's attack than the other variations of Najdorf.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one impetus. And another is that, and if, I'm not very good at arrows, but the struggle in Najdorf and most Sicilian, hey, Alterito 94, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. His struggle is for d5 is a very important square.
Mm-hmm.
And bishop on g2, which is where it ends up, is very well positioned to fight for that particular for that particular field. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I like. In other words, I like the fact that it's relatively less well known. I like the fact that it's here bishop g2 that, and on top of it, that bishop on g2 is, and I need to learn how to pull the arrows, is kind of, this pawn on b7 normally goes on b5, and there is always an opportunity to push, e4, e5, and
Mm-hmm.
they are, and for the record, then I actually lost that game against my dear friend international master Mark Esserman. There's whole sorts of interesting tactics related to e4, e5.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, it's hyper aggressive. And I have, as Anna indicated, I am very comfortable in positions that are sharp enough that you can shave with them. To use the imagery. So, and that's basically, maybe less brief, but that's an overview of what I like about Adams.
I think that's a great overview. And as I was preparing today's lesson, I started thinking to myself, I should also learn this opening because the games I've been looking at, they are also promising for white. I'm like, why do I struggle with my bishop e2, Najdorf, and just those solid lines? Because these attacking positions can be really appealing from white's perspective.
Okay.
So after g4 in this game, we're gonna arrive soon to the first moment where I'm gonna ask you a question, Nicole. Let me get to
Okay.
that middle game position. And if you want to add any thoughts on the opening for the viewers, feel free because
Sure.
this is a line that you know way better than I do.
Okay.
Do you play this exact line, or are you familiar with any of this position?
I don't normally play a3. The line I normally play is I do play bishop g2 early, and then
Mm-hmm.
there is one first decision that white needs to make. Hey, Kasper Ved, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Electric Wave, for the follow. I like bishop g, play early g2, and then the white has one question to answer. It is where to castle.
Mm-hmm.
There is an option to castle long, and castle long has several advantages. One is that that pawn on g4 is already well advanced to attack black.
Mm-hmm.
The disadvantage of castling long is that this knight on c3 is basically I don't want to is one thing that stands behind the black's counterattack on the c file.
Mm-hmm.
And the key ideas for black, and as you guys can tell, I actually played quite a lot of games in this opening. Daniel, this is Adam's attack. It's against Knight of Sicilian. This knight will gonna end up here, and then it can end up at e5, or it can even go to a5, and the key square for that knight is actually c4.
Mm-hmm.
And if it gets on c4, if your queen is on d2, then you have to part your ways with this bishop, which is actually not favorable for... hello, Luigi1597. Thank you for the cheer. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. So, queen d2, you kind of want to prevent that knight to coming to c4.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one motive. And so what I've been playing is I play early f4, and then you have this phalanx of, you have this pretty strong infantry attacking the black king, which
Mm-hmm.
tends to be unnerving. And if black plays knight c6 to knight e5, then there is an option. It's actually a very dangerous move to make, but I've played it with some success. You want to play b3 and then figure out a way how to defend this knight. I have even played quite a few games in which the king, after castling long, end up on b2 and basically defending the knight by its own lonesome. It's safer for white to castle short, because surprisingly enough, even if white plays f4 with all these pieces in this area and bishop on g2, the king it's pretty hard for black to mount an attack on the white king. And that's basically an overview.
I think that has been a great overview, and I agree with Famous Wizard that I'm the one who is learning now, because this is a new opening to me, and you've just described the different alternatives. So the game today is with a3, but now we have learned that you can also play with bishop g2 f4, as Nikola likes to, and castle queenside, which is a more aggressive approach, or castle kingside,
Yeah.
in which case your king may not receive the same aggressive attack as it will be doing on the queen side. Today's game will probably I'm not gonna make spoilers. No, a3. So a3, bishop b7 will soon reach the critical position. So I'm just gonna scroll through these moves if it's already not something that theoretically is interesting. But the position will be really exciting after all this kingside pawn launches. There's already a g5 h5 pawn
Wow.
storm about to happen.
Okay.
So in this moment, I was going to ask you about theory here too, but if you don't get to this position, I was very surprised that I could barely find games for this position. And the most common move I saw in this position was g6, but there were no master games for g6, and I think g6 is quite a weak move. It doesn't really stop um, the kingside attack because black cannot take back with the h pawn. So if you have to take back with the f, well, like f pawn, that already drops e6. I don't understand why would anyone want to play g6. So I was just shocked that white's position is already so appealing that the most common move between amateurs would be g6 here.
That looks like immediately losing move, actually, but
I think the same.
maybe I
There
should
was
play
like
this
22.
variation if people play g6.
That's what I thought to myself. There were about 22 games for G6 in my database, and the game, this one, is between two grandmasters, and the grandmaster with the black pieces, Sabino Brunello, went for Rook C8, which is better than G6, but it's still not really convincing because first crunch time. Nikola, I'll need you to evaluate this position and decide how would you continue with the white pieces.
Okay, let all right, now if I have 5 seconds, I'm playing g6.
I think we can always start with this. What if it's a blitz game? What would you play?
Yeah,
And then if you have more time, would you change your mind?
okay, I'm playing g6.
Okay.
If I have 15 seconds, I may play bishop g2 and then play g6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, let me evaluate this position. Hey, Amadeus Burrito, thanks. Uh, welcome to the channel. Okay, so here are a couple of questions. Where are these guys castling?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where are these guys castling? And so that's number one. Number two, the thematic strike here is for black is to put the knight on c4.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he actually played that he wants to put both knights on c4. So, you know, and there is also an option to go to e5. So that, Fins Funchas, thank you for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. Okay. So those are the typical motives for black here. White needs to get to first needs to prevent that, number one, and number two needs to get to the white king as quickly as possible. Okay. So let's say I have 30 seconds or a little bit more to think. What is the appealing move in this position? Well, the problem with g6 is if the black takes with an h pawn, I really don't have a counter because the rook is a little bit problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And the real question here is if I put the bishop on g2 and I'm sorry Anna. Can we?
Oh, no worries. You can make that move if you want to show it to the viewers. I know you would be able to calculate it without playing it out.
Yeah. So if I want to play this, I'm fine, and then I have some serious threats. But am I really benefiting from having the bishop on h1 where it's undefended? And then there are possibilities of, some queen h4 stuff. And one of the benefits of castling short is that the king actually defends that bishop on g2. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and the real question here is, so let's do the good old candidate moves thing. And let me think for a second. And I'm going to put you here. So I can play bishop g2. Mm-hmm. I can actually be hyper aggressive and play f4, which had an added benefit of stopping the knight from going on e5. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I have time to play queen d2 and then castle long, though that looks like a logical plan. So, so those are the, I think, 3 candidate moves in this position. The question I have is, how does black respond to any of those moves? All right, so the black has a couple of motives here. Motive number 1 is knight c4. Okay, so that's motive number 1. Motive number 2 is this knight can go, all right. The arrows are not.
No worries. So knight e5 or knight
and
c5.
I think our camera got disheveled in the process. I apologize for that.
Oh.
Sorry, I'll fix that shortly. Sorry about that, guys.
As long as the board is big, I think everyone is happy.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's
so the knight
important.
can go to c5 or e5. And c5 has the advantage that it's hitting the e4, and obviously if you lose the e4 pawn, we are, white is in trouble here. So, having said all of that, I think I would, let's see, I don't see, I think the sequence of moves I would go for, and I might be deadly wrong here, would be to play f4 first, and then consider playing bishop on bishop on g2 afterwards, or depending on what black does, consider castling long, or figuring out a way to bring the rook, one of the rooks, into attack on the black king. So
I think f4 is an appealing move. And also the other ideas you mentioned, bishop g2, although with bishop g2 you were already highlighting that the trouble can be that black was aiming for knight c4 anyway, and so if, for instance, bishop g2, we would now need to decide what do we do with this situation that black can take on e3, the pawn on b2 is hanging, the pawn is supporting the c3 knight, so knight c4 could be an issue if white played bishop to g2. After f4, you keep the possibility of capturing on c4 if needed. I don't know how you feel about those captures. Do you sometimes have to give up the bishop on c4? And how do you feel about those trades?
Well, funny thing, I think the evaluation in this position, the more pieces on the board, the stronger the white attack is. So the problem here is, let me put it this way, is black plays knight c4, there are only 2 candidate moves. One is, and for the record, I played that move in one of my games, is to get the bishop back to, sorry, let me just adjust the camera for a second.
Sure, I'm just going to draw in the meantime what you mentioned, that the bishop can drop back to c1. I think this is the kind of move that sometimes club players would be afraid to play if they are not familiar with these kind of positions, because we've just developed the bishop and then you put it back to the same square, so it takes 2 tempi and you are back to square one. It's a retreating move. People don't usually like retreating moves. It feels like you are admitting you made a mistake because you put out the bishop and now it goes back. So psychologically there's a lot against this move, but sometimes you gotta play it because, as you said, the more pieces you can keep on the board, usually the better for the attack. So it's better not to take on c4 but drop the bishop back to c1 indeed.
Yeah, so in this position I would definitely, I would play bishop c1, and here is, and I'm going to think aloud about evaluate this position.
Mm-hmm.
This knight doesn't need protection because it's not under attack. And normally bishop on e3, defends from. If the knight is on c6, then there is a possibility. Hey, can we provide walled? Thank you for the follow. Thank you, Zertis, so much for the follow. There's no knight c6 and there is not knight b6. Nobody is attacking this knight, and it's already protected by the queen. And we need the bishop to support this advance.
Mm-hmm.
So I would play bishop c1 in a New York minute. No, I'm not saying it's a good move, but it's. I have no problem playing it, and obviously there needs to be some concrete evaluation. What is it that the black has in this position that we are worried about? I actually don't. I mean, I might be completely blind, but in other words, we can continue with our attacking plan, and basically our question that becomes, how are we gonna? We're kind of giving up on castling long, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the trick here is, hey Shadok, thank you for joining the stream, and we got a raid. Okay, that's great. Thank you guys. So I'm perfectly. I would play the bishop c1 here.
Mm-hmm. I think you are fully right here about retreating the bishop to c1, keeping the pieces on the board, and as you said, you can continue the attack later. Bishop g2. You can still castle kingside, even though we have advanced those pawns. But the black king will be in the same situation. Black cannot castle queenside any longer, so there won't be a case where black can take advantage of the pawn advances. Now, this position is complex, so this could be a perfectly fine opening position. We are on move 13.
Oh my God. Sorry, Anna, thank you,
Alex.
I bought this live for a raid of 16, almost 1600.
Oh my God, I've just realized what happened.
Thank you. Welcome, guys. Thank you, everybody. Just to give everybody a shout out, this is the inaugural stream of Nikola Learns Chess with the one and only legend, international master Anna Rudolf. Thank you for joining us. This is our first lesson, and we are actually following a game by two very strong players. And thank you, Chessbay. Thank you, Ulan, to giving us up to Bottes Live. And it looks like we have one of our first.
A hype train, I see, is coming in.
Thank you, Alexander Andrea. Thank you, Bottes Live, for the raid. That's very, 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 very greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex, for bringing your lovely community over. And I was watching your stream earlier. That was also another teaching chess stream. I really like those segments on Alexandra's channel, and what we are doing here today as well. As Nikola said, the inaugural session of Nikola Learns Chess. So we are going to be studying middle game positions, complex middle games, where the attacking and defensive ideas can be really instructive. So we are just starting. You guys are still in time to start thinking, because we are observing a critical position in an opening that Nikola likes a lot, the Adams variation, Adams attack against the Sicilian Najdorf, which is this position here, h3, and we are discussing this moment in the game between Grandmaster Alberto David against Sabino Brunello, two Italian grandmasters. So my question to Nikola was, what would he play in this position? I'm just trying to sum up to the newcomers, if that's okay, Nikola, what we've been doing. Of course,
please. Thank you. And I'm just going to give a shout out to Hoff Believer. Thank you for the 1,000 bits. That's very, very, very greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for all those follows. I see we are already on level 2 of the hype train. Thanks everyone for supporting Nikola's channel. He definitely deserves it. So here the question was, what would Nikola play in this moment? And I love how you said, if it was a blitz game, I go g6, and then if it's a longer time control, then I think whether bishop g2 or f4, queen d2, we were looking at those ideas. So we've observed a little bit what would happen if f4, knight c4, bishop c1, which is a complex position. But what if I told you, Nikola, that your intuition is insanely strong?
Okay, that's very nice to hear. Thank you.
So, can you make your first call, your first move work somehow in this position? What about the g6 move? Let's calculate it.
Okay, so we are playing g6. Okay.
And it's a question to everybody as well. Try to make that move work. g6 as white. What would be the follow up? What happens later?
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. So let me, and thank you guys, thank you Rebecca Laurent, thank you everybody for following. We actually got over 120 follows in the last 3 minutes. Thank you, Alexandra,
Wow.
for this, and thank you, Keith78, for the. Thank you guys. That means a lot. This level of support. Thank you so much. So, all right. So let me think about this position. All right. So the purpose of the move on g6 is to basically, you know what? They're playing freaking Adam's attack. Sorry, forgive my French. Who cares about rook on h1, right?
Perfect. Who cares about this rook?
So g6, go for it. Yes, I would. Yeah. So basically, I would play in a bullet game the same move I would play in a if this was 90 plus 30. g6.
g6. And the reason why Nikola is saying who cares about the rook is that after h takes g6, there's a pin here and the rook on h1 is hanging. But Nikola, are you saying you're going all in and you want to take back on g6?
Oh yeah, of course. Here is what's very interesting here, and this is one of the reasons I was so looking over for these to our sessions, Anna, is that you and I analyzed briefly on the stream a game we played before, and I completely didn't consider the move I was making, and vice versa. So yes, I'm taking on g6. If I take on f7 first, what exactly is that poor king gonna do? If it takes on f7, I can even, if I don't worried about rook, I can play queen f3 and grab that rook. And if I take on f7 and he cannot play, mixing it up. This is the sole purpose of Adam's attack, is to mix it up and go for a mate. So yes, I'm taking on g6.
Awesome. h6, g6, a rook sacrifice on move 14. Welcome everybody to the stream. This is Nikola's attacking style. I love it.
Okay.
It's the best move in the position.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. All right. And just so everybody's here is on the same page, my problem here is that I can, in an attacking position like this, I'll play 3 or 4 or 5 best moves and then I blunder. So I just need to make sure that doesn't happen here.
I'm sure it won't happen. We are here to train and you're gonna get stronger and stronger. But now you'll need to prove, what do you have for that rook that you've just given up, Nikola? So let's see. How do we follow up this rook sacrifice? What's next?
Well, I'm taking, it's a natural move is, actually let me think for a second.
Do you want to say once again, what would you play in a bullet game and then think?
I'm
because I find it interesting.
I'm taking, if I'm playing a bullet game, I'm taking on f7 instantaneously. I'm actually probably pre-moving that move.
I like that, pre-moving it.
Yeah.
And if it's not a bullet game?
What other options do I have?
Oh, Papa Bot is in the chat as well.
Hey, Papa Bot is. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's exactly what I'm thinking. But you know, he can play if what Papa Bot is saying in chat is that, you know, queen f3 and bishop g5 looks scary. My worry is that we don't really want to give black time to play knight on f6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know, I think I'm still taking on f7.
And Hatcho gifting a sub to Papa Waters. That's
Oh,
much
thank you,
deserved. And thank
Hedgehog.
you,
That
Hedgehog.
thank you. You know, guys, I have to say one thing. I was a viewer for more than a year before becoming a streamer, and it's very tough to focus on a game and manage the stream. I honestly don't know how you guys do it. Anyway, all right. So we're taking on f7,
Taking
and
on f7. Very good. That is the move that was played in the game. The others were interesting too, but this is the strongest. So Queen f3 was an interesting alternative, but I think this is the strongest. And now there are two possibilities for black, obviously. Either taking or king e7. If king takes f7, I think this is easier to decide what will be the follow-up for white.
okay, we can actually, yeah, we can play Queen f3.
Mm-hmm.
And then, depending on what black does, we can take the rook on h1, and we have a very strong attack, and we're not down material, so
Mm-hmm.
that's an easy decision.
Yes, this would happen if black takes, and if the king goes to e7, not allowing this double attack with queen f3, how do we continue?
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Um,
If there's a move that comes to your mind, I would love to hear that, and then if you think for longer, because I really like the system that you say what would be your move in bullet, and then what would be if you actually have time to
okay,
think.
in a bullet game, I am. What am I doing? I'm. I'm oh, that's actually nice. I'm capturing on e6.
Okay.
So
All
it's
in, all in.
yeah. So yes. Um, so that's a bullet game move, and that queen and black has to take it because the queen is trapped.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Okay. All right. So I don't see a better option even in a longer time choice. I think knight e6 is a perfectly reasonable move.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So what would be your calculation after knight takes e6?
Well, knight e6, king e6, and the follow-up is what? Okay, let me actually think about this for a second because
Mm-hmm.
this is the crucial position. Um, oh, half believer, thank you for another cheer at 2,000 bits. That's very nice of you. Thank you, half believer, and thank you, Lali, for this for the for the sub at 2 months at tier one, and thank you, Tackle, and thank you for all these follows, guys. That's very, very nice. All right, so what are we doing here? And this is where I lose the thread, incidentally. This is where I get in trouble. All right, so what are the candidate moves here? Candidate move number one is to give a check on g4.
Mm-hmm.
And after candidate check on g4, this is still very forced because if black goes to e5, it's mated on f5.
Mm-hmm.
If
Very
black
true.
if black goes on f6, then then we can play bishop g5, and then there is I don't want to start like Tal, but there must be a mate somewhere.
Yes, that's correct. I can show those on the
It,
board because this is a
it's
very pretty mate. If the
yeah,
king goes to
yeah.
e5, queen f5 mate. If the king goes to f6, you are right that this has to be winning next move or so because in worst of cases, you are winning the queen.
Yep.
So the question will be, what if black takes on f7 or goes back
Yes,
to e7?
that's obviously the crucial move. Okay. All right. So if black takes, so if black takes on f7. Okay. And this is when I don't see it. So let me think a little bit. I cannot, I don't have a check. I don't have, I cannot move the bishop on f1. Queen, I cannot give a check on f5, and I cannot play queen f5 because the black is gonna play knight f6. So what do I do here? Yeah, that's basically the crucial position.
I see Dirk in the chat saying queen f3. The only difference, though, that we have already given up a rook and a piece, so we are not getting back all the material, even if we win the rook.
Yeah, so this is where basically forced variations have stopped. All right.
What would that lead you to think? Would you still have faith in this line, or are you questioning whether this knight takes e6 is the right move to make?
Hey, Kif78, thank you for the cheer, and thank you for the, yes, that knight on d7 is a good defender. Okay, so, well, what can black do to improve its position? Let's assume I castle long, just hypothetically.
So you would consider if black can finish their development too after castle queenside. We are a rook and a piece down, but white is ahead in development. So the question will be whether black can quickly bring their pieces and make sure that the king will not be in trouble.
Yeah, we have initiative, but we don't have material. And if the knight from d7 finds its way to e5 or f6, and we are in trouble.
So now let's see it from black's perspective. What do you consider here a good defensive continuation? What setup would you aim for?
Okay. Something along the lines of I think I got it. So black probably wants to put that knight on d7 somewhere to protect the king. Okay, so the question here is, do we go to e5 or do we go to f6? So here we have another interesting theoretical motive, and this is why having time is useful. I can play bishop c4 and grab that rook on h1, and then I have a rook attacking.
So you're threatening with this discovered attack.
Yes. And I don't think that, whatever black plays, I'm capturing on h1, and then I have a rook added to the attack. I'm losing firepower, though.
Yes, because that gives up the bishop, and after knight takes c4, black can also trade on e3.
Correct. And if black plays knight f6, what is the continuation here? So if we were to go back to, yeah, I don't even have a check here, or I don't see a way to improve white's position unless I'm missing something very simple.
So you consider that this is potentially not the line you would want to go for. That black is material up and the king is not in trouble.
Well, king is in trouble, but um, I don't see a way for white to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, playing something alone, and I'm already down a rook and a piece.
Very true.
Uh,
Let me
so,
just give a quick shout out to Jen. I've just realized that she's with us. She's saying, "Hello, Anna and Nikola, about to record an interview, but wanted to pop by and say hi. Hi to
oh,
Jen
thank Jen.
Shahad, and thank you so much for coming by, Jen."
Hey, Jen, it's always good to have you here. Thank you so much, and hi, and please, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sorry I didn't see you in the chat. It's very hard to focus. This is a very complex position. I'm trying to focus, and I'm not. So sorry
You
about
should be
that.
focusing, Nikola. I focused on the chat, you focused on the
All right,
position.
thank you, Anna.
We split the task here, the duties.
Yeah, this is where I would probably abandon that whole line with castling
Okay.
long.
So you think
I
then the idea of knight takes e6, where it started, is where you would go back to? Or what would be your calculation after this conclusion? Where do you go back?
well, let me. Uh, let's go back to the calculation before. Can we just take out the castling long and just let me take a quick look at
Sure, you go
this.
back to wherever you want. So just if you want to explain what would be your thinking in a game after you have calculated until that moment, knight f6,
Sure.
would you go back a few moves, or would you go back all the way to when we started with king e7? I'm curious about your thinking.
Okay, if I start from this position, I have already sacrificed a knight to get here. So and it is appealing to do a castle long move.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually do not see a mate here or a mating attack here with basically I only currently have two pieces in attack, which is that black squared bishop and the queen. This knight is out of play. Oh, sorry. This knight is out of play. This bishop is pinned, and this rook is the beginning position. F4 is too slow.
Too slow after giving up a rook and a piece.
Yeah. So the question here is, how is it possible to bring more firepower to bear in this position? And I don't see it.
So if that's the conclusion, then would you go? What would you do next? I'm curious. What would be your thinking in a game?
Well, to be very, very frank with you and everybody in the chat, I would have probably played this and stopped about here and say, oops, what do I do now?
In a blitz game, probably. But in a
Yeah,
classical game,
but
imagine it's a rated game. But you normally play, I think,
yeah,
shorter games.
yes. All right, so that means that I cannot play knight e6, however appealing it is.
Yes, a very tempting move, but may not work because we
Yeah,
have run out of
yeah,
pieces that could continue the attack.
correct.
A question in the chat was why bishop g5 check does not win, and I think Nikola outruled that move because there's a response to that move, which is
Knight f6.
indeed. So we are not winning the queen because of knight f6, but this could be a key element if
Okay.
we put together the pieces of the puzzle. So it's of course good to have in mind that there's bishop g5, but the knight defends.
Yeah.
And also you were looking at the e6 square, but you were gonna
Yeah.
sacrifice the knight.
Correct. So the move here is probably something along, and I'm just gonna make the move. So this keep this knight into attack. It's not immediately obvious how black can actually defend this.
Yep.
And if he moves this knight, he is, yeah, this is, if I'm black, I mean, king f7 is queen e6 mate. And what else is he gonna play? He can try to play something along the lines of bishop d5, which I'm gonna take with a check and then another mate. He can play rook h6. So yeah, this is not as pretty as knight e6, but this is stronger.
Stronger indeed. Similar thoughts on, like, you saw that the e6 square is the soft spot, and bishop g5 you already outruled because of knight f6, but now combining the two elements, the only move, as you said, that would protect the e6 square is moving the knight away, but then bishop g5
is winning.
wins the queen and
Yep.
the game.
Yep.
Very good.
And that was the end of the game, I presume?
Could have been, but I'm not gonna make it this easy.
Okay.
King takes f7 was played in the game, so that's the line where we knew what was gonna happen because queen f3 wins the rook back, but it's equal material. So even though white is better because the king has become vulnerable, it's not a decisive advantage. Queen f3 check.
Okay.
Knight f6. Queen takes h1. And here, I'd like you to think about this position for a moment from black's perspective. I'm pretty sure you would prefer this as white, and we're gonna continue playing as white. But if you had to play with the black pieces, what would be your evaluation, and what do you think would be the way to continue this in this
as
moment
black
with the black pieces? Yes.
Okay. All right.
And Dirk, thank you so much for gifting us up to Mert Felin, and thank you everyone for the kind
thank you,
messages.
Dirk, and thank you, Murphan, for joining us. Okay. Well, if I'm black, I'm basically saying I have the equal material. I'm not down anything. So that's my big problem. My second big problem is that my king is in deep trouble. I have a weak spot on e6 that needs protection.
Very true.
By terms of counterplay, I don't have much left outside of playing. I mean, what is potential black's counterplay here? You have this threat of knight c4. If I'm black, I basically want to try to get this into and exchange as many pieces as possible, because most of my pieces are in worse worse position than the equivalent white pieces.
True.
So white doesn't seem to have any instant threats that need to be parried immediately. So what is, and white king is still in the center.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let me find a couple of candidate moves for black. One first is knight on c4.
Mm-hmm.
Tempting as d5 is, it fails to e5, and I don't really want to open this position any further. So that's not really an option. I can't play e5 because knight goes on f5, and then I'm in trouble. So what I really want to do here in this position, well, I am actually not familiar with either of these players.
No worries. You
No,
can
no,
play it as if it was your style.
Okay. Well, if this is my style and I'm playing bullet, I'm taking on c3.
Very good. I should have asked you first. What would be your move in a bullet game? Because your intuition is really strong.
Yeah. So take on c3 and then play queen c7 and or knight, and follow it with knight c4 and give white the taste of its own medicine. Not to mention then after you take on c3, this you can take the pawn. This bishop can take the pawn, and all of a sudden, if this bishop ends up on g6, your king is very safe from any queen attacks.
Yes, rook takes c3
Yeah.
happened in the game and is, I think, the strongest move here to give up an exchange. I was briefly analyzing alternatives. Knight a4 was one of the moves I looked at. I don't find it really appealing, but I was curious what happens if black doesn't want to give up the exchange but still wants to somehow get to the e4 pawn. So I would like to look at this briefly because it does have some instructive positions. After knight a4, now swapping back to white, Nikola, your bullet move, and then let's see if you would change it for anything else. So how would you react to this?
Incidentally, I'm a very bad bullet player. My bullet rating is about 500 points less than my blitz, so I don't want there to be any misunderstandings.
Yeah, we mainly mean Nikola's intuition. What would be his first thought, his first move?
Well, I would like to get the queen back to attacking that pawn on e6. So something like bishop on h3 or even queen on h3 appears appealing on the first step. And I think bishop is actually better because we kind of want to get that bishop into play finally.
True.
Okay. If black takes on c3, then we can actually take on e6, and whether then, and then we will take on e6, and whether then, and then what does black do here?
I'm just gonna drop the king somewhere. Probably e8 would make more sense.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you, Hedgehog1963. Thank you for giving a sub to Kevin. Thank you so much. It rarely occurs the opportunity to gift a sub to Kevin, so I like to grab it as well. Okay.
So after taking on e6, you would take back on c3.
Yes, I would.
I believe, that's or are you or taking on c8. So do you have those two options?
If you, I can take on c8, but then we have this. Let me think for a second. If I take on c8 and then queen takes on c8, then white position is collapsing because you know, if this knight can't be taken, we are threatened here. So all of a sudden it's the black who is attacking, and actually black is ahead in material. So no, I can't take on c8. I'd have to take on c3.
Indeed. So after king e8, b takes c3, and how do you evaluate this position? What do you think?
Okay.
Let's say I'm grabbing the pawn since the rook is hanging, and that's free stuff. So now it's equal material.
Okay. In other words, how we as a white are in a little bit of trouble here.
I don't know if you're in trouble. I'm asking, what's your feeling about this position, and how would you continue?
Thank you, Olon, for gifting us up to Hazelot 1. Huh. All right, so let me think with a little bit of structure. This pawn is being threatened. This knight is basically preventing any possibility of any queen h5 attack. So if I am, black has this lovely potential move that I need to figure out to deal with.
Very true.
So how can I get, if I want to get rid of this knight, I can play something along these lines, but that might be too slow. Or maybe not. Let me think for a second.
Sure. It's a complex position, so feel free to take your time.
Sure.
I'm curious what the chat thinks as well. I'm gonna drop the question to you guys. Do you prefer this for white, for black? And what will be the follow-up here? What do you predict? Fred on blank, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's the problem with playing knight b3. He has a double check. So that doesn't work. Simply swindling. That's exactly right. I actually looked at that. It's appealing. Okay, so what do we do here? I cannot, it's tempting to castle long, but I can't because I'm dead after queen e5. Material is equal, so I don't really need to force anything. But I need to figure out to protect this gentleman. And I can't do f3 because if I do f3, this thing is hanging. So I don't really have any way of doing it unless if I want to play something like this, which is stops any attacking chances I have.
Mm-hmm.
Another option is to play something like this,
Uh-huh.
which eliminates queen a5 threat. And where is
True.
that rook actually going? Okay.
Let's say I go to c5.
Okay. All right. Incidentally, this is probably the toughest thing
Mm-hmm.
one has to face. There's nothing forcing,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
So
and
how do you feel about the e4 pawn? That was the problem earlier. You have dealt with queen a5, so that's not an issue anymore.
yeah,
The pawn is still hanging. Would
I
you
can
take time to protect it?
no, I can play f3 and solidify the position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm frankly I'm looking for something better.
Even better than f3. I
Yes.
see.
What is better than this? I don't have my queen is a little bit out of commission. I can castle. I still cannot. I can actually castle long.
Hmm. Would you castle here? Would you dare to castle?
I have castled into worse threats than this, but
I like that answer. I like that answer because
yeah,
it's a good move. It's one of the strongest.
yeah. Actually, one of my very favorite moves was favorite games was against Chelsea. I actually castled into this, and that ended up being a very good move. But anyway, all right. So basically, the question here is: do we try to castle long? Do we play f3? The problem here, if we play castle long, then he takes with a bishop on e4, and then we have. Then what do we do? I think f3 makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would play f3.
Yeah, f3 castle queenside is good and also gives advantage to white, but you're right that there's no need to give up the e4 pawn
Yeah,
if f3 is a perfectly fine move and you can still castle afterwards. So this position after bishop d2 is a really strong move in my opinion because
yeah,
you solve the problem that you couldn't play f3 because the bishop was
yeah,
hanging plus the queen a5 threats are both now solved after bishop d2. However, there's a tricky line after bishop d2. Black can play bishop takes e4. This is gonna be a crazy line, so I'm gonna show it because I'm not a genius, but I analyzed this with the engine and it says f3, so it looks like black is in trouble because the rook is hanging, the bishop is hanging. And then the engine says, okay, I don't care, rook takes f3, knight takes f3, and what do you think is the point of this sacrifice? What's going on here? How comes this is not completely lost for black?
queen a8, right?
Could be, could be. The intuition is right that there's something here with the tangled pieces.
Okay. What? That's the bullet move. Um, Chat is recommending queen e7.
Do you take the chess suggestion or do you stick to your bullet move?
The I'm gonna stick to the bullet move, to be honest with you.
So what would be the follow-up after queen a8? How will white defend the knight?
Good question. White can only defend that knight with the king.
Mm-hmm, true. So queen a8 and the response would be king to f2, for instance, to protect f3.
Correct.
f2 or e2 are the two squares.
Probably. Oh, that's actually a good question. F2 is dangerous because it opens the door for potential checks on G4 or E4 if that knight moves.
Mm-hmm.
E2 is probably a safer alternative, I would think.
Mm-hmm. So queen a8 and king e2. I agree that the king,
Yeah.
funnily enough, is safer on e2.
All right, so the question here is now what?
True. Is there a follow-up? Because now black is a rook down.
That pesky material, right?
Yeah, we started the game with sacrificing a rook for white, and now it's black who is a rook down, so it's just a roller coaster.
Yeah, I lost track how we sacrificed the rook for black, but it's yeah.
That's totally fine. We are here for the instructive moment. So is this okay for black, or did we miss something earlier?
The black now has the same problem that the white had in the other. I don't think they have enough firepower to bring the attack to a successful conclusion, because what do? You play bishop c2, and then I play queen h4, and I'm no longer pinned, and you have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this doesn't work. So queen a8 is not the right move.
All right, so we go back to the moment after the sacrifice. I'm going to show you real quick. So we were talking about bishop d2, and every natural move here, rook c5 or any other rook move, leads to white being able to protect the pawn on e4 with f3, and white is better because now we have managed to save this very important central pawn. We can
Yep.
castle queenside, and the black king will be in trouble. The problem is that the engines are so smart that they say bishop takes e4 is still okay because after f3, even though everything is hanging, black sacrifices a rook on f3, rook takes f3, knight takes, and there is a move here that seems to save the day.
I'm just going to make one general observation about engines, if I may, which is
Sure.
basically what I love about engines is that they will force you to follow a path in which you need to find 20 unique moves in a row to
Yes.
get 0.1 of points of advantage.
Exactly. So I was praising bishop d2 because I think in a practical game that's a winning move. Like no
Yeah.
one, no one will go for bishop takes c4, f3, rook takes f3. But for the purpose of showing
Okay.
this instructive position, I wanted to highlight that if the opponent plays like Magnus Carlsen and AlphaZero together in a consultation game, then they will play this line, and here there's something that makes it work for black.
Okay, and I'm 1900. Because let me look. All right.
But you're very good at dynamic positions.
Thank you. All right. All right, so what are the candidate moves here? Queen e7,
Mm-hmm.
which is a reasonable move. It attacks the bishop, and there is a question mark. How does white proceed? Because it's actually not immediately clear how that open check can be prevented. Okay. So we can play something like queen h3 and so on and so forth. So that's option number one, but that we take on f3 and bishop on e6 and we are actually good. So what is white's response to queen e7?
So the bishop is hanging, and if the bishop moves,
The bishop moves, we have the check. We can take the knight with a check from the queen.
yes, I'm gonna play that move, and doesn't really matter where the bishop goes.
Yeah,
This is winning the game.
That's the end of the game.
So if white cannot move the bishop, how can white deal with that hanging piece?
Oh, geez, castle long.
Castle long is possible, yes, so that you would not care about the e6 bishop. Because what happens if you protect it? Can you protect it with a move like queen h3?
I can, but then I'll take the knight. The black takes the knight on f3, and then I cannot. The queen is overloaded.
Very true. So we cannot keep protecting the bishop if we take on f3.
Yeah.
So this would be,
So
in a position like this would be an exchange up for white, but black has a piece and 2 pawns for the rook.
Yeah.
And the other idea was, after queen e7, you mentioned castle queenside. So what would be the follow-up here? Obviously, for black, he should go for it. And then I'm curious, what do you think of this position overall? Would you take white here, or would you prefer playing with the black pieces?
Well, I can play knight g5.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is always that pin on e1 to look forward to. The problem is you have this pawn on d5 that can protect whatever piece is exposed, and we are actually, hold on a second. All right, so let's play. If we play knight g5, black can take on h1, takes on e6, and ends up having, it's the same position, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's a queen trade?
It's basically an equivalent of a queen trade.
Yeah. After knight g5, what are your candidate moves for black?
Okay.
So knight g5 is the move we are calculating, and bishop takes h1 is one of the moves, obviously. Is there anything else?
I can play queen e2 and threatening mate.
Uh-huh.
Which is actually fairly dangerous.
Yeah.
Because there are 2 mates to defend, not 1.
Mm-hmm. A very good point. I was looking at queen a1, but you're highlighting there's a mate on c2 as well.
There are 2 mates.
I did not see that. I was only looking at a1. I need to admit.
No, I see that. Okay, so well, all right, so what does white is still, the material is equal, correct?
Yes.
So nothing actually forces us to do anything here. The pin on f3 can be countered by a counter pin on e1.
Mm-hmm.
So I can be cute and play queen. Can I play queen b2? king b2, sorry.
King b2 to protect the a2 square, and then maybe later you can have ideas with knight g5. Although now that the king is on b2, we'll need to pay attention to other possibilities of the queen.
Sure.
But this move prevents queen a2.
Sure, and I don't want to do king b1 because the b3 check and associating amusements.
Yes.
Okay.
This is possible, but how would you evaluate this position, and with which color would you prefer to play it?
Okay, the famous tough question.
Just intuition wise, it's very difficult to evaluate, so I don't need an objective evaluation. It's more like the feeling. How do you feel about this?
Okay, the honest answer to that question is that white is a couple of tempi away from being better. If we allow, white to unpin that knight, put the rook on a1, and maybe bishop on b4 or c3, the black king is in trouble and white is better. Now the dynamics of the position are such that black can probably reinforce its position faster than black can. And here is, I'm just going to play this out. So let's assume this is king b2. Black can play something like this. And then, if it's something, you have an option to play, defend this here. And the question here, what exactly is the follow-up?
It's a chaotic position, I know.
No, it's fine. No, this is exactly why we are, doing this. Yeah, the chat is saying queen g4, rook e1. The problem is that black can move the king out of the pin, and then it's a little bit dangerous.
A shout out to the other Anna, if I see correctly, that Anna Kremling is with
Hi,
us
Anna.
as well.
It's good to
Hi,
see
Anna,
you.
how are you doing?
All right, so what can... So let's... I think I have actually a sequence of moves that will win this for black.
Okay, let's see. After king b2.
So I'm gonna play queen c4, threatening a mate. And then I'm gonna and then I can play either, depending on what white plays. If he plays rook c1, I'm putting queen on c6. Still threatening this, so I have a double threat to take here and here.
Yeah.
If the white plays c3, I put the bishop on d5, and this is nasty.
Yeah. You have turned the tables here on white, because it's exactly true what you're saying, that the light squares are so weak in white's position that queen c4, queen c6, bishop d5, all those ideas are extremely dangerous. So very good job there with the intuition and calculation, Nikola.
Yeah,
Really
so
good
basically black is winning. Now, would I found this in a bullet game? No way. Would I found in a blitz game? Depending how much time I had on the clock. I would have found this if I had 5 to 10 minutes on the clock. Oh,
I think so.
We got another raid, this time from John Bartholomew. Thank you, John, for the raid. That's so nice of you. Thank you for joining us. And let me give a shout to John. And
thank you so much, John, and everyone joining from John's channel. This is Nikola Learns Chess, a new chess show. This is the very first session where I'm teaching Nikola chess, obviously. Nikola is a strong player, but we are learning on his strengths and weaknesses, especially with focus on middle games, attacking and defensive skills. So, what you can see on the board right now is a crazy position, one of the many complex positions we are studying and analyzing together. If you want to improve your chess, feel free to stick around and learn from Nikola because his thought process is very instructive to follow.
Anna is very kind. Hey Frank, thank you for joining us, and I apologize if I didn't, if I managed to miss some people greets and so on. I'm desperately trying to uh, work with this position that Anna is throwing at me. So yeah, so basically the evaluation is this wins for black.
Yes, this position is better for black. Um, Maybe it's king b2 where it slips out, but the whole position is so crazy. I don't really want to focus on this. It was simply to show that after bishop d2, remember this position, Nicola, where to solve the problem of the pawn. Sorry,
Yeah.
here rook takes c3. After rook takes c3, let me promote it. This is what John always told me, Anna, you don't promote the main lines on the analysis board, so I couldn't go back to the line where I wanted to. After rook takes c3, Nicola found bishop d2 with the idea that after the rook leaves, doesn't really matter where it goes, white protects the e4 pawn, a very important central pawn, and then white is better. White can still castle queenside. It's airy there, but not as airy as the black king on e8. So this position is better for white. And then we ended up looking at a line which is extremely unlikely to happen in a game between two human beings, but the engine doesn't care. So bishop takes e4 and then sacrifices a rook on f3 and goes for queen e7. So this is the madness we were
So
looking
queen
at
is
right
seven
now.
is the move. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's
Makes sense.
about 0, 0, 0, the evaluation, but as you could see, one bad move and it falls apart for either side.
Okay.
So that's madness. But now let's go back to. I think after bishop d2, you would have won any game against anyone there in that position, Nicola, because for
Thank you.
human beings, this whole rook sacrifice is just way too deep, in my opinion. Funnily enough, all this is because I wanted you to calculate the whole line with knight a4 and bishop h3.
Okay.
I told you I'm gonna make you work. This didn't happen in the
That's
game.
fine.
What happened in the game? Remember
It,
this position. I asked
yes.
you about black's idea. What would you play as black here? And you said that
Rook
you would
c3.
follow with. Indeed. Rook takes c3 is the strongest move here, and that's what happened in the game. So after this move, black is giving up an exchange in order to destroy the pawn structure of white, so weakening the queenside pawn structure, getting rid of that important piece on c3 that was protecting the e4 pawn. So now black can take on e4. I'm just going to scroll back in my analysis to make sure I'm making the correct move order. But here after bishop takes e4, this is what I'm sorry, I'm messing up my analysis board on the other screen. Just a second.
Sure.
It wants me to add another line and then froze the screen. That's brilliant. Um, where would you place the queen after bishop takes e4, Nicola?
Well, I can still just for amusement's sake, I can play f3. Correct.
Yes. So it's a correct answer that you're not forced to move the queen if you don't want to move it.
Um, okay. Now, joking aside, what's the best place? So, in exchange for exchange, black has brought his bishop to the defense.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, the white fields are no. That's no longer a weakness. The bishop will protect it. It parks itself on g6. I don't see how we're going to attack it. All right, or it's not immediately obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm white and I need to make a move.
Yes. And as you said, it's not obligatory to move the queen, so you can play f3, bishop g2, or move the queen. Knight
Okay.
f3, I'm outruling because I don't think that's a move we would
No,
consider
we're
here.
not, we're not gonna play that. Yes. Oh, and just two shout outs to Anna. I'm actually wearing her signature hoodie, and
Thank
I'm
you so
drinking
much, Nikola.
and I'm drinking from her cup, which is all kidding aside, I like the cup. It's the right size. It's big.
Thank you, thank you. I
So
wanted to have the bigger mug. There were two options, I think, on the store, and I was like,
yeah,
I need the big mug.
yeah, and I like the signature in particular. The signature is very nice. But
Thank you.
all right, so what am I? I'm white. What am I playing here? Where can queen? Obviously, queen on h1 is not exactly in the best. Uh, not very well developed, to say the
Hmm.
least.
Yes.
And if we, so the candidate move is to play something like queen h3 and target that poor e6 pawn that has been the target from the get-go.
True. Very true. Would you go for that? We can go back to once again the blitz move thinking, and what if you had a bit more time, or let's call it bullet because it's a few seconds.
Right,
So your intuition.
bullet sequence is queen h3, queen c8, and then I have no idea, to be quite frank with you.
But queen h3 seems to be a good continuation for
Yes.
the bullet game, right?
Yes, it's a decent continuation. Honestly, bullet probably I would just play f3 as a quick and dirty move. Queen h3 is probably could be a better move because at least it prevents that bishop from being developed on f5. So is there another candidate move? If there is one, I don't see it. Hey, Mr. Magic UK, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. All right, so I would probably play queen h3. I don't see anything better, to be very frank.
And that's the best move indeed, and it happened in the game. Bishop g2, I think, is similar if you want to trade bishops. So that's a question whether white wants to trade the light squared bishops or not, because if you want to, then you can go for bishop g2 immediately, or after queen h3. The question is now, of course, as you said, the e6 pawn is hanging, so black has to deal with that. And the move that black played, I think, is the best way to defend it, bishop d5. Although, as you said, this bishop could also be useful on this diagonal. It's just that we can't have both. We cannot have it for protecting the e6 square. Another way to protect it would be to use the queen for it, queen d7 or queen c8, but it's not ideal. Queen c8 does threaten c3, so it's something to bear in mind. But other than a one-move threat, it's not ideal to use your queen for protecting a pawn. Plus, now the b6 knight does not have any protection, so that can give extra tactical motives with discovered attacks. Yeah. So those are some of the downsides of a queen move. Bishop d5, I think, is natural and protects the e6 pawn well. Now, how to continue after bishop d5?
Okay, that's a $64 question. Well,
let's see your intuition and then think more.
All right, bullet move is, there are two bullet moves. Bullet move number one is to play bishop d3 and take the advantage and finally bring that bishop to bear.
Yes.
So that's option number one. Option number two is to bite the bullet and castle, or even play king d2, though king d2 is dangerous because of knight e4 check and then all sorts of nastiness that happen from that. So I think both those moves make sense. I think the right sequence is to play bishop d3 first, so at least that knight jump of the knight on e4 is kind of semi-neutralized.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
So
playing
bishop
bishop.
d3.
Yes.
Yeah, I think bishop d3 is a good move. It's strong. It develops the bishop, as you said. It takes care of the e4 square. So that would be definitely one of the good moves here. White went for a different idea, but I'm not really a big fan of it. So we're gonna take a look at the game. I think bishop d3 is fine. I like bishop g2 as well, in case you want to try to undermine the e6 pawn.
Yeah.
So it depends whether you want to use the bishop for attacking or
Okay.
trade it. But both are, I think, good options. Knight f3 was played in the game, which I'm not that big of a fan,
Okay.
um, for the reason that Black now took this moment to, well, White is aiming for knight g5, which is really annoying. It's true because attacks the king, so it's a check, and then the pawn on e6 is problematic because the king cannot stay.
Mm-hmm.
um, the problem is that Black isn't worried about giving up the pair of bishops because after this trade, now Black can use that d5 square for the pawn. So after taking on f3, queen takes f3, and pushing d5, yes, it's true that we got rid of that strong bishop. That bishop was really powerful on d5. But now Black has managed to build quite a solid pawn structure, a good grip in the center. The bishop, now this bishop has finally an active diagonal. The knights can later try to jump to squares like c4, e4. Obviously not immediately, but those squares will be available because of our ruined pawn structure and Black having a healthier pawn chain. So there are now some pros as well in Black's position, and the king seems to be safer after the trade since we don't have those knight jumps anymore.
I would prefer to play this position as black.
As
For
Black,
yes.
I was gonna ask you if it shifted after this trade.
Yeah, I think these two knights are very annoying. These pawns are basically a collection of weaknesses,
Mm-hmm.
and the this bishop really doesn't have any scope of development. Yeah, I prefer this position for black. I might be wrong, but I think with the cavalry being able to, jump here, go here, threaten this and this and this, I would like my chances as a black.
Yeah, I agree that even if material wise this is still an advantage because White is still an exchange up, but I think White's position has gotten a lot more difficult in terms of how to convert it, if it can be converted, because as you said, now Black has also counter chances, and in a practical game these counter chances can be very dangerous with the knights on the board and no clear plan for White on how to proceed. So that's why I think this knight f3 wasn't the most fortunate. And I like more bishop d3 as what you suggested, or bishop g2, but not trading the knight for that bishop. So I would have preferred, for instance, the comparison. If we just take a look at this for a second, that if White wanted to trade that bishop but for the light square bishop, now the very same setup wouldn't really be that miraculous for Black because our knight is extremely strong still on d4. D6 pawn can still be a problem in Black's position with moves like queen h3. And there's nothing decisive here, there's nothing concrete, but I think if we compare this position to the one that we were just looking at,
Yep.
White's pieces are better here for this same pawn structure and same trade.
Yeah, agreed. It's and the knight is, the white knight on d4 is probably the strongest piece that white has. So yeah,
Yes,
it
that's indeed the case here. I'm gonna promote this before I forget because John will tell me that this has to be promoted. The game move was knight f3.
okay.
So trade d5.
So they
And
actually
here,
played this. Oh, okay,
yes, yeah, it
okay,
was played. It was played, and that's why I prefer your move bishop d3 or the other bishop move, but not knight f3.
okay.
I think it was inaccurate, not like a blunder, but I would call it an inaccurate move, knight f3. White played after d5 bishop to d3, and now queen c7. What would you do here, Nicola? So queen c7, the pawn is hanging. What do we do if we have to play this as white?
Okay.
Let's move and then let's think.
Okay. Hey Frank, thank you for the bits. That's very, very greatly appreciated, my friend. Thank you so much. Bullet move is just take on b6,
Mm-hmm.
and because that knight is going to be very annoying on either c4 or a4,
Mm-hmm.
and that bishop is useful, but I think the knight on b6 is stronger. So that's the bullet move.
Mm-hmm.
Blitz move. All right, I cannot play bishop d4 because of e5. If I put the bishop on d2, that bishop is permanently sacrificed to the cause of defending that weak pawn on c3. I'm in trouble here, actually.
Bishop d4 e5. Do you think there's any follow-up? It's very complicated. So this isn't like a solution or non-solution. It's just a messy, chaotic position.
Sure.
But do you think that it's still okay to play this? Is there a follow-up
Yeah, you
here?
can. I can take on b6,
You could
obviously.
take on b6 now.
But actually, if it okay, let's be messy. Actually, I like messy as you mentioned. I take on b6, take on c3, grab the rook.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So bishop takes b6, queen takes c3, and that wins the rook. So
Actually, I
king
don't even need
e2
to take the
possibly.
rook.
Oh, you don't want to take the rook, okay?
I can even be obnoxious and play e4 here.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, I can take on e4. But then if white takes, then I am in trouble. Yeah, that's not good. So yeah, I need to take the rook.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, as you mentioned, that e4 could be an idea. If it wasn't that bishop takes, then the
Yeah,
queen is hanging. So
yeah.
queen
So
takes
we're taking
a1.
the rook. Okay, and
Yeah.
now what?
So what has happened material-wise?
Material is now exactly equal. White, actually, black is 2 pawns up.
Mm-hmm. Black is
And
2 pawns up.
there is the spin. Yeah, so I am. Is this what you want? I was under the impression that there was a counter to e5. There isn't. This is the
Bishop takes b6, you have refuted. So bishop takes b6 does not work because of queen takes
okay.
c3. And actually, it would be a similar position if you take on b6 earlier, right? So we
Okay.
have looked at bishop d4 e5, but also could be similar after immediate bishop takes b6, because the same idea that you can pick up the rook instead of taking back on b6 also works. That's why it's really troublesome here, as you said, that, oh, well, what can we do? So let's see if after bishop d4 e5, is there a different way to continue for white?
Okay. All right. So if I move the bishop, the queen c3 still applies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so I can the bishop move is not it.
True.
I still have that monstrous knight of an f6 that basically is dominating my queen.
Mm-hmm. True.
Um, I can do queen g3, and then it becomes interesting.
Queen g3 pins the pawn, so the
Yeah.
bishop cannot be taken, and also attacks the pawn.
Yep. And
Now
then
black has to defend the pawn. Two ways, I believe, would be knight to d7 or bishop d6. I'd like to look at bishop d6 first because that
sure.
move threatens the bishop. So after bishop d6, finally, it seems that black could once again take on d4. How would you continue after bishop to d6?
I am gonna. I'm. I can play queen g6.
Queen g6 is one of the options.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. So can I finally castle?
Oh, you want to castle right now? Interesting.
I
So
ca-
you are not worried about the bishop on d4.
No. Yeah. It would be nice if that rook would magically you can castle and it would end up on e1, but it's not. So. All right. So let me think for a second about
Sure.
this queen g6 option. Queen g6. What black cannot go to e7 is actually. I don't think going to e6 is an option because bishop f5 for the same reason bishop e7 is an option and b8 is taken, so it's basically the question between f8 and g8. Okay, if all right, so what I can do is the best move is probably to take on b6, right?
So if you want to take on b6, in what position can you make that work? Or how is the line again with queen c3 and black picking up the rook?
Hmm. Does it work? In other words, does it work here?
Yeah, can you take on b6? Let's see that first. Does it make a difference that we have included queen g3 and bishop d6?
All right. I Well, I have queen g6 now, and obviously, I mean, black can also simply just take on b6, but hmm. All right. Okay. There is definitely an option here. There is a line that bishop on b6 is taking a bishop on b6 is the right move to make. It's just a question of when.
Very good. Yes, when?
Okay. And I'm quite sure that at some point we will try to castle.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've just ignored that ringing. My apologies. Okay, so I can. if I take on b6, the queen c3 takes and takes the rook, and I don't. I have a check on g6, and do I have an option of playing something along the lines of bishop d8 afterwards?
To use that b6 bishop in the attack.
Yes.
Let's take a look at that position that you're analyzing. Bishop takes b6, queen takes, king moves, queen takes a1, and now either check or bishop d8, right?
I can play this. And I can place, then king can probably go whenever here.
Yeah. King f8 to keep the g7 pawn protected. And now bishop d8. So let's see this position now from black's perspective. How do you think black should defend this position?
Okay. Black is actually, white got into this position not sacrificing that much material. We're only talking about 2 pawns difference. So this is not a bad position.
True.
Okay. What are the immediate threats that white has? Immediate threat is to take on f6, and then take on queen, capture bishop on d6, and black is gone.
True.
However, there is a nasty move, e4.
Nasty because it opens up the long
because
diagonal.
all of a sudden forgive me, the bloody queen defends f6, and
yes.
I have zilch.
And on top of that, this d3 bishop doesn't seem to go anywhere.
Yeah, so I'm dead. Okay.
But it's a good attempt, and important that e4, without e4, this position would really be interesting because black cannot defend with bishop e7, then you can take and queen g7. So it's only the queen that comes back to defense.
Yeah, so in other words, this doesn't work.
Yeah, but I think, once again, your intuition is correct, and you know that you should make this bishop b6 work. But in every position where we looked, bishop takes b6, where we analyzed bishop takes b6, queen takes c3 was always a check, and it picked up the rook. So can you imagine a scenario where you would outrule that possibility? So you could just simply take on b6.
Sure, I can... All right, so can I do that now? My bishop on d4 needs to go somewhere. I can at some point I can play king d2 and declare that to be a Spartan king and going into bravely among the enemy pieces.
How did you know I included the term Spartan king in the annotations? Because I did, not in this position, but in another one.
Sure. Yeah, I've been known. Yes, that's a possibility. I'm not sure this is the right place because, if I play king d2, it will take on d4 and so on. All right, so we have just basically eliminated this. I think this continuation is, unless I'm missing something, which is quite possible.
You're only missing a small detail, but that can allow you to take on b6. So the problem is always queen takes c3. And you were looking at alternatives here.
Okay.
But we need to find a way in which c3 would be protected.
Okay, so I can give a check with a bishop on g6.
Yes, correct. We were looking at queen g6 only, but bishop g6 solely for the reason that we want this pawn to be protected. and now you can trade on b6, and this is an entirely different story because black cannot take on c3, so has to take back on b6. We are still on exchange up, and the king is in the middle of the board.
Wow. All right. Okay. Uh, yes. That's yeah. Thank you, Anna. This was. I don't want to say I missed this, but yes, I see it now. So
You didn't miss it, and we've already been streaming for 2 hours, so I know how tiring these positions are. It's
no,
it's
no, no.
always a messy, chaotic, complex position. So
Uh,
I'm just training you, as I said.
sure.
Hard. It's gonna be hard.
No, no, no. That's no, no. That's fine. That's exactly right. We need to protect d3 and bishop g6, and this is basically the clarification of the situation. That well, this is still a reasonable. Is this what was played in the game eventually?
um, Not quite.
Okay.
What I did, I always like to go for the instructive sidelines too. So
Sure.
also in my chessable course, I think you realize that some of the exercises were from sidelines because
Yes.
I think some of these details, especially when two grandmasters play, they see these positions possibly, and in especially like in a very complex sacrifice line, what would happen if, but those ifs are not in the main line because they don't play them out, but you need to calculate them and you need to see them so that you know what would have happened if.
Yeah.
So I like to draw attention to some of the critical lines, not all the sidelines, but some of the critical ones.
Okay.
And in this case, though, bishop d4 is a move that I think was okay to play for white, but white didn't play it. White went instead king f1, which is also interesting, just giving up the pawn for activity. So declaring that he doesn't need to too much long to keep those pawns. King f1, allowing queen takes c3. But now it's also about the a3 pawn. The rook is hanging, the a3 pawn is hanging. Here, rook e1. So white is giving up basically two pawns to activate his pieces. The pawn cannot be taken right
Because of
now
the knight.
because,
Yeah.
very true. So knight b d7 was played by black. And it's time for Nikola to tell me what would he play in a bullet game, and then let's analyze this further.
Okay. I'm white, and this is a bullet game.
Yes.
And this is how I lose my bullet games.
would you prefer black here? Just let's
No,
start
no,
with that.
no. Uh, this is how I lose bullet games because this is a medium complexity position that I actually have trouble with.
Mhm.
Like if it's a wild attack, I can handle it. If it's
Yeah.
a clear position and an end game, I can handle it. This is a medium complexity position that I have difficulty with. So, what's a bullet move here? Bullet move here is to. There are two options. I can. Okay. I can play Queen H3.
Mm-hmm.
What Queen H3 does is it threatens Bishop D4 or some sort of, that poor E6 pawn has been troubled from the
Yep.
beginning.
Very true.
So that's one candidate move.
Mm-hmm.
Another candidate move would be to actually see if we can follow up with some sort of a check on G6. So let's make it Queen G3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another threat. And I don't think there is a way to effectively protect this poor pawn on A3. I think that that needs to be protected dynamically in some way.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yes, the a3 pawn is dead, so we better
Yeah.
get the initiative and go for the attack on the king side. Both queen h3 and queen g3 are really promising moves. Queen g3 was played in the game, but queen h3 I think is perhaps even stronger because of the attack on e6. None of them are like, okay, this is clear cut the best. This is a messy position. I think both have their own ideas. So queen g3 is the game move, the game continuation. And here, black took on a3, which I think is really risky. This territory that black is entering. Why do I
Oof.
say it's risky?
Ouch. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's just look at some. It's risky because white. So that was played in the game.
It was played, yes.
All right. So I
And
can.
it's not a blunder, it's not a mistake, but I think it's gonna be very difficult for black to defend.
All right. So I can play something along the lines of Queen G6.
Mm-hmm.
And after Queen G6, I can let me actually draw the arrows so that people know
Sure.
what we're talking about. Black needs to move the move somewhere. I can pile up on G5. This pawn is being under danger again.
Mm-hmm.
I can, once I get there, and that may actually be the most promising plan, I can move the king here and put the rook here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have an idea that at some point black is going to end up being, hey, Steve, I'm Steve Berger. Thank you for the raid of 42. Welcome, raiders. Thank you. This is the inaugural.
Joining us. It is a raid day, and Nikola. Yes, I should let you explain what we are doing today.
Yeah, this is the inaugural stream of Nikola Learns Chess with the legend international master Anna Rudolf, and I am. Anna is showing me a very, very interesting razor sharp position, and I am doing my best to trying to keep up with it. Somewhat.
You're doing great. You're doing great. But we've been analyzing this position for already, well, not this exact one, but this game we've been working on for almost 2 hours already. So it's normal if you are getting tired. And Grandmaster Dania Naroditsky.
Thank you, Dania, for the raid. Thank you for the gift, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Zamax 2000, for a 50-member raid. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you for joining us. Let me just give Dania a diamond. I'm honored. Oop. Oh, it's sorry, Anna.
No worries. I'm curious. I see Danya has to be going, but I'm curious, Danya, if this was your bullet game, what would be your continuation here for white? So we are looking at this position after bishop takes a3 for black, and Nikola is thinking how to continue here. If you had to say a move in 5 seconds, it would be bishop g6 check. Thank you for the input there, Danya. Thanks a lot. We're gonna make Nikola calculate your move now.
Okay, so bishop g6 with an idea that okay.
Oh, but Danya is following up with the thought that does seem a bit superficial, since maybe black king is safer on the 8th rank. Very insightful.
Okay, thank you, Danya. It's very nice to have a 2650 grandmaster evaluate a position, so thank you. That's very greatly appreciated. So the question here is, I'm actually curious, why did Danya pick bishop g6 as opposed to queen g6?
And also look at his follow-up thought, because now that he spent a few more seconds on the position, he's saying what caught my eye is the weakness of the e6 pawn, which we were analyzing earlier. Yes. So that's one of his first thoughts now, and the fact that the queen on c3 is undefended, so maybe some ideas with the bishop on e3 moving and giving this cover check.
Okay, yeah. So So we need to find a discover check that queen cannot take.
Uh-huh.
All right,
A move
so
with the e3 bishop where the queen would not be able to take the bishop.
all
And
right,
we are
so
threatening
I'm
bishop
actually gonna
g6.
play that on board.
Oh, you want to give the check first? Okay. Let's take a look at this. I thought that Danya meant he would move the other
Ah,
bishop first.
okay,
Diana,
gotcha.
thank you so much for the subscription as well.
Ah, I see what Danya had in mind. I missed it. Gotcha. All right, so we want to do this.
Yes, move the bishop. He didn't say a square yet, but the idea would
Yeah,
be that once
okay.
you move the
I
bishop,
see it now. Okay.
you are threatening bishop g6 check, picking up the queen.
Okay. Yes, and now and obviously even if I play queen g6, that's pretty ugly for black, and the queen needs to do something.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So what is the black's response to this?
Yeah, now let's find the defense. We better find the defense if there is. So double threat: bishop g6 check, queen takes g7.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so what are the options? And I'm going to get rid of the arrows for a second. How can queen defend? This is actually surprisingly simple. This, right? So that's
Knight e4.
So that's one possibility.
So knight e4, I just wanted to draw this in case it was not understandable.
Yeah.
But Nikola sees immediately that the knight not only protects the queen, but also opens up the long diagonal, so both threats are dealt with. So knight e4 is a good defensive move, after which there's no more discover check, and the h6 bishop will be hanging as well.
Okay. And then, this bishop is in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm white. What do I do here? All right, so, and I almost Botta's gambited out of this position.
Tell us how. It's always great to see Botta's gambit, so tell us which
Yes, I
one.
thought, why don't I play f3? It crossed my mind, swear to God. Okay.
I think the Botta's gambit is even more emphasized when it's with a check. So f3 to allow knight takes g3 with check is the classic Botta's gambit.
Thank you, and please don't clip this and show to Alexandra. She gave us a very very big raid, and she has been very supportive of my streaming throughout the whole thing. We don't she doesn't.
Obviously, we are just joking. We appreciate Alexandra and the raid that she has given to the first stream of Nikola Learns Chess.
Yes. So here is a problem. My bishop over there on h6 is hanging. My queen is under attack. Hey, Diana Mirza, thank you for the sub, and thank you, Ingenious723, for the follow. That's very greatly appreciated. So let me think for a second. What do I do here?
Danya is saying get that knight out of e4.
I can. What I think Danya has in mind is I can take the knight either by a rook or a bishop.
Oh, he was kidding about f3. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. And I thought he was trying to help you.
Okay, thanks, Danya. That's very nice of you. Okay, so I need to find something that basically, so I have to give a check with a queen, right? I have two checks. Very good. So I can give a check on f3. And after I give a check on f3, I can take on e4, and then the queen is still pickled. And I'm gonna basically trade this bishop for this knight. So I'm actually gonna just play it. So I don't know
Yeah.
where king goes, somewhere here, or even anyway, it doesn't really matter. I can
So
do
your idea
this.
is that once the king goes somewhere, once it steps out of the check, bishop takes e4 now, the bishop is protecting the queen and this is hanging. So this would be great for white.
Yes, and here is a problem with that. Just let me think for a second.
Yes,
Assume
what's the problem?
assume that king e8 is actually convenient for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I have checks by either bishop. If it goes to e7, I can save my bishop by doing this. If I
Can you?
well, after I take on e4,
Okay.
I have this
Yeah.
check available.
Yeah, for
Sorry,
afterwards, yes.
yeah. If I go e here, if I do this and then do this, then I'm not, then I am, I think it's actually bad. I don't have that check anymore, but he can't give me a check here, and I can just, black can do this, and then if he takes here, I am probably gonna end up being better as white.
Mm-hmm. You're
Okay.
collecting quite many pawns now. It seems
Yes,
it's
because
post
this is
Pac-Man
gonna
mode.
die, this is gonna die, this is gonna die. I'm probably very close to winning.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, so this king e8 is not the right move for black.
Yes, then let's find a way to continue, a better way to continue for black after queen f3 check.
Okay. This is an option. And
Let's see the difference between these two king moves.
Is there are no checks with the bishop.
Uh-huh, correct.
And now if we do this line, black can, what can black play? Oh, that's not good either.
Mm-hmm. It's not good because even though we don't have checks, the pawns are still falling.
The pawns are still falling. All right, so what is the best line for, oops, sorry. What's the best line for black after this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's kind of obvious, right?
Yeah, the king moves have been already analyzed, so it's gotta
Yeah.
be something different.
Yeah, so it's this is obviously a much better position for black, and this is probably, so black here has 3 pawns for exchange, so black is winning this.
Yes, it's an advantage for black. So either knight d2 f6 in that moment where you were discussing the check. So queen f3 check, knight d f6 is one of the good moves, or queen f6. But there's gotta be a way to keep the black king on f7 because of all the lines that you have analyzed. So very good job there. Very good job.
Yeah. Okay.
So bishop h6 because of knight e4
Is not
doesn't seem to work, although there are of course a lot of other alternatives. As Danya said, that after knight e4 bishop takes e4 should be calculated too, but it leads to another endgame where black gets to trade the queens. It's still an exchange up for white, but a lot of pawns for black. So this is not exactly what we are hoping for. When we were discussing that we would like to give that check on g6 that would win the queen, ideally we wouldn't allow this endgame. So are there any other squares where you would prefer this bishop, if not bishop h6, just for the idea that we would like
sure.
to give this check?
Okay. Okay. So, however, a bishop h6 is appealing, but doesn't lead us anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Because of knight e4, which is a strong
Yes.
defensive move.
Yep. And
If it wasn't for that, it would be winning.
Yes, thanks, Anna. So here is a question. All right, so we need that bishop to create some sort of a threat. This bishop is a visible target.
Mm-hmm.
This knight is doubly defended, so that's really not a target. So I cannot attack this bishop from here, so because it's gonna be taken by the queen. So we want to do this.
Bishop c1 is definitely something to calculate, indeed.
Okay. All right. So what can black do here? All right. It can take, in which point we're grabbing the queen after bishop. So basically, to draw the lines, then we play here, and the queen is gone. So that's option number one. However, he has a move that saves everything and actually creates a nasty threat, which is this.
Mm-hmm.
And that protects the queen, and this rook is in trouble.
True.
So that doesn't work either. So bishop c1 is not the right move.
Mm-hmm. Because of bishop b4 saving the situation.
Yeah. That option is available even if we play bishop c5. Right or not?
Is bishop c5 good for white here?
No, it's not, because queen takes it and we have nothing.
Yeah.
All right, so we need to find another way for white to generate a threat while moving the bishop. And it's not bishop on h6.
If there is one, because Danya
don't
came
see
up
one.
with the idea.
I kind of don't see one, to be frank with you.
It's in between, because unfortunately we have looked at bishop h6. That would have been great. If this works, this is a winning move. Unfortunately, knight e4 saves the day. Bishop c1 is another really promising move, but bishop b4 once again only moves, but they save the position for black. So there isn't a move with the bishop that would create another big threat, but it is true what Danya said, that it would still make sense to move the bishop, because bishop g6, so that one threat is a really big one, and if we can improve our bishop at the same time. So where would you place the e3 bishop if you just wanted to improve it?
Well, what are the better places for the bishop in this position? It's bishop g5 is a promising move, but that had this advantage that it's blocking g6. Actually,
does it matter though if it's
actually
blocked?
It's not. No, we can play bishop g5 and then play bishop g6, because if king takes g6, we have. No, we actually don't, because the queen.
Oh, sorry, I jumped back. This is why I need to promote the lines. I'm sorry, I need to promote this because I jumped back to the wrong one. Okay. Apologies.
No worries. Okay, so
bishop g5 we are looking
all right, so let me actually play this. So what is the threat here?
Yes, what's the threat of white?
Well, it's the bishop g6 and takes the queen.
Yeah, and how can black deal with that threat?
I can play bishop. I can play bishop b4.
Bishop b4 protects the queen and attacks the rook on e1.
Yes.
Can we continue with the initiative here as white?
Okay.
If there's any other forceful move that could help us keep going with the initiative, even if there's no direct winning line, but just keep the attack going.
Well, here we can, we don't have time to take the knight because this thing is, the bishop is being, the rook is being threatened. So anything we do short of moving the rook, we can go back to defending this gentleman and play this.
So queen e3 to attack on e6 and defend the rook, but would you be interested in the trade on e1?
Probably not.
Especially since we give back our exchange. We don't want to give it back, indeed.
No. So what are our options here? All right. We kind of, if we play rook e3, we're still threatening this.
Very good. So moving the rook away, but keeping the threat alive.
Yeah. Yep, that's
renewing
the move.
the threat, indeed. Rook e3. And I think this position is really dangerous for black, and that's why I thought that bishop takes a3 is very risky, because what's the right way for black to defend here? I don't think it's that simple. The queen has to go somewhere. What's the right square? Will black give a check? Then what is the queen doing on a1? So yeah, black can move the queen with a check, but then the queen on a1 may not be helping much on the king side. If the queen goes somewhere on the c5, will that be queen c6, queen c8, queen c5? I think queen c6 probably is the best.
We need to, I think, white needs to protect this pawn that has been actually, for the last 2 hours, the other threat.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is actually a very, very frankly, this is the type of a position that I have trouble with, and I'm very grateful we are doing this, Anna. Thank you.
I'm glad I found the type of position you needed.
No, thank you. When it's not immediate jumble of immediate threats and it's not a mating attack, but a need to sustain initiative. I've lost quite a few games in which I had initiative and I had a winning position, but I found unable to sustain initiative. So thank you for this. So, okay, so we are concluding here that we prefer to play this as white, correct?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Okay. Was this played in the game?
Not exactly this line.
Okay.
White went for queen g6. The position, remember where we went for bishop g5? And you were calculating queen g6. It's still an interesting move, but I think bishop g5 was more challenging to reach this position. And here, I do think that it's really, maybe it's still possible to hold for black, but it's gonna have to take 10 precise defensive moves if white keeps going with the initiative. So I think this position is very promising for white. And I wanted to ask you, what would be your bullet move here? Also, shout out to Maria in the chat, photo chat.
Hey Maria, thank you for joining the stream. Please let me give a quick shout out to Maria. Actually, just wanted a quick announcement. Day after tomorrow on Friday at 8 a.m. New York time, Maria and I are having a sub battle. And the loser of that sub battle, myself, I managed to put myself in a difficult position that I promise I'm going to impersonate Alexandra Kostyanyuk. I'm afraid to impersonate Alexandra. So can we please figure out a way for me not to lose? Because after I had some time to think, I've discovered that I'm afraid to do that. So, I'll do it if we lose, but let's please not. I don't want to do that. It was bad enough impersonating Andrea Bottes. So, all right.
I love it. High stakes, definitely high stakes,
That's
some
high
battles.
stakes, about as high stakes as it gets. Anyway, all right. So I'm white here. What is my favorite move? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like a bullet move, and then we're gonna analyze in more detail. But
All right.
this could be. Well, I'm not gonna say it. First, I want to hear your bullet move, and then I'll talk.
All right. Bullet move. I'm probably gonna take on f6. Give a check on g6, and then depending where the queen goes, either go on h3 or wherever to
Yeah.
with hope to mate black.
Yes, because we were describing how we had to be building up this position, so bishop g5, rook e3. But this is indeed, I'm telling you, your intuition is insanely strong for attacking positions because
Thank you.
it is the right move. The strongest move is to take because I think a lot of times it's difficult to decide when is it the moment to go for something concrete and when is it still a
Yes.
moment to be building up. But here, actually, white is running out of useful improving moves. So bishop takes f6 is the strongest, going for a concrete line. Now, whether knight takes or pawn takes, if knight takes, let's look at this first.
Okay, I'm probably going here. And
Mm-hmm.
then I don't know. Obviously, if king goes here, that's very bad very quickly.
Yeah.
If it goes here, oops, sorry. If it goes, it kind of has to go either here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I can do this,
Mm-hmm.
which is threatens to take the knight and threatens mate of g7. Actually, this looks like it's lights out.
It is lights out. Very good job.
Yeah, if black plays this, which is actually better,
Mm-hmm.
this is probably actually. I mean, this is probably very close to lights out.
Very good. So rook h3 now threatening rook h8, and if king g8 to protect the aj square.
We go back to g3 and then we have the same threats.
Very good. That is extremely precise and the most accurate way to finish the game.
Okay.
Good job there. Awesome, Bruja. Thank you so much for the subscription. Hedgehog gifting a sub to Photo Chess and Dirty gifting a sub to Chess News. It's a lot of subscriptions.
Thank you guys. That's very greatly appreciated. Very, very good. And thank you, Bruja, for the very, very kind words. And that does mean a lot. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I wasn't giving as much attention to the chat to people who were gifting in kind. Anna is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at me tonight.
Very well described. That's why
Yes.
I'm looking at the chat more so that I can let you think through these really complex lines. But this would be lights out, as you said. White is winning here. So instead of knight takes f6, black has to take back with the pawn on f6. And now let's see how will you continue here. I'm going to promote this because I learned I need to.
Okay. Well, let me think for a second. I can do this again. Then you're trying to escape to d6. Okay.
So the king would go to e7 to try to run away, right?
Yeah. But then I can do something like, and I'm doing bullet moves, forgive me.
Yeah. No, let's see the bullet moves because I think your intuition will just spit out the best moves here.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I think this, what does black play here? If it plays here, it's ugly very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Okay. And then whenever black moves, I can even, oh, I can't. Actually, I lost the thread. Hold on a second. Yeah, intuition is great while it works.
It is working. I'm telling you, you play the best moves. You just need to finish it with a
Yeah,
precise calculation. But you're just right in front of the
yeah.
final move.
Okay, so what do I do here? Well, hold on a second. I can take here,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
and there's not really
there
a
is no
way for black to defend.
no, and that's over. Otherwise, the queen is lost, and I can certainly win against the bishop and the knight.
Yeah. So
And
this is once again curtains.
yeah, okay,
I think the only way for black to hold, but once again, these are just only moves to defend the pawn from f8 because that also covers some of the checks,
correct. Yeah,
but
okay.
still not an easy position for black at all. So how would you continue from here on?
Ooh, and this bishop on b4 is defending the knight. Okay.
Yeah, luckily for black.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let me think for a second.
Sure.
Um, Incidentally, just you and I played a game in which I lost a position because my initiative let me down.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I can play this
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and wear this, and he can't go here. He can go. If he goes here, this is probably pretty bad because this
Mm-hmm.
is threatening. Okay. If he plays here, then this is dangerous.
Indeed.
And what? Let's see here. So what does the black play here?
I think here he's pretty much close to resignation.
Yes.
One attempt, but once again, these are just like if black doesn't play this, and this, it was already resignation 5 times. So I analyzed king d8 here, which is quite ironic because it allows queen takes f6 with a check.
Okay.
But after queen takes f6, now black goes bishop e7 and tries to create some kind of a shelter for the black king. It's still not over the attack because even if you just keep the queen here close, now the e6
Yep.
pawn is hanging, and this looks, I think this looks terrible.
I wouldn't
But
want to play this as black, but
yeah, I analyzed here just uh, as to illustrate bishop d6 takes, queen takes, and the evaluation of the engine is that white is better but not winning. But I think it wasn't even close to +1. It was about 0.30 for white. But
okay.
I think this is still crazy dangerous for black. Like black had to be making only moves for the final, for the last 10 moves. It's been only moves basically, and it's still really sharp, and the king is just dancing there on the c5. So I think these are the positions where I don't really mind that the engine doesn't give that much of an advantage in a practical game. uh, how would you feel about this in a practical game, Nikola?
This is uh, this is a couple of precise moves away from black losing.
I feel the same way about this position. Yes, I feel
Hey,
the same way.
Lola. Hey, Gerber baby. Thank you for the song request. We're not really playing music today. I'll happily play that during one of my Monday streams or on Friday. I have a stream with Anna. Sorry, it's we. This is hard as it is without music. Without music. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Gerber baby, for
Thank you,
spoiling.
thank you for coming, and I'm gonna me I'm gonna figure out how to refund those to you. Sorry about that, my friend. Thank you for being here with us. Okay, so
So this would have been, I think, the ideal line for white. And once again, for black, we played a lot of only moves. So this, if this is the best scenario for black, after bishop takes a3, I think this is still, as you said, Nikola, in a practical game that could be curtains a few moves later. So that's why I was saying that bishop takes a3. In my opinion, this is the game. So up until this moment, this is the game, and bishop takes a3 was played in the game. But I find it too risky because if, as Danya said, his intuition was saying if the dark squared bishop moves away from e3, even if we don't have a move like bishop h6, but just bishop g5, threatening bishop g6, and then you found after bishop b4, you found this extremely strong rook e3 move.
yep.
I think this is a very difficult position for black, and it would be a miracle to hold after all that we have analyzed. But it didn't happen in the game. Nikolai, your move bishop g5 is stronger than the game continuation.
Okay.
So I will show you what happened in the game because it kind of became a tragic comedy.
Okay.
Bishop takes a3, queen g6 happened, which in itself is not bad, but unfortunately it loses the threat on the third rank, so we cannot go for that idea anymore. That's the problem. By giving this check, we are losing that option. Black goes king f8, and now white became very optimistic about his attacking chances and played bishop h6.
I'll be honest with you. I considered that, and
I was gonna say, would it be a movie you look at?
I looked at the move and I was and that looked too optimistic, and that was, I let me think for a second. I think what I was looking at was we still have this option, and I'm not saying that's the right move to make, but it is a move to make.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Okay, another option is okay. So what happens if I just take it?
Yeah, that is the main question.
What do we do here? We played this.
Yes, that's the game continuation indeed.
Okay, and then what is really our threat here? Our threat here is that we're gonna take on these knights are very good defenders.
They are.
And this bishop is protecting the key diagonal. So what I have a pretty good idea what was played in the game, actually. I think black can play this.
You're very good at guessing the game moves.
And
how did you know?
and this is curtains for white.
It's looking like White's attack is losing its power. By the way, Gerber, baby, thank you so much for the song request. I just realized it was a David Hasselhoff masterpiece, Country Roads, that you have requested.
Thank you. As we're gonna play it after the analysis of the game over, as we are saying goodbye, because we are not gonna deprive Anna of the David Hasselhoff game. Thank you for. I'll prep it and we'll play it. We'll definitely play it. Thank you.
I just realized that you guys were talking about it, and Chiyu is with us in the chat. As far as I can see, everyone is gathering here on your channel, Nikola.
Okay, thank you, Chiyu, for joining us. It's always good to see you, and I think the lady deserves a diamond. So let me make that happen. All right. Oops. Okay. So basically, that was the actual game.
Yes, bishop c1 was played. I think after the problem after bishop c1, it's gonna get a little messy, and it got messy actually after rook takes a6. So this is the game what we are looking at right now. Rook takes a6. Now renewing the threat on the back rank. Black played queen e5, and after bishop f5, the problem for black is that in this position, there's only one move that holds. So
Oh,
bishop
jeez.
c1 was the game continuation. It wasn't that much of a mistake in itself, but the mistake comes here because black didn't find the only defensive move.
I was so proud of that move, darn.
A 2600 grandmaster played it in a classical game, so I think you should be proud of yourself.
Okay.
Travis Jeffrey, thank you so much for the subscription.
Yes. Okay. So there is an only move in this position.
Only move. One
Okay.
move. One
All right.
move.
So let's the 2600 grandmaster didn't find.
Didn't find.
I'm very I am very honored that you wanna expect me to find it. So thank you.
You will find it, I'm sure. And
All
also
right.
thank you for the gifted sub to Ekanemsko.
Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you, Ulan. That's very greatly appreciated. And all right, so what are the candidates here? Jesus, this is actually pretty ugly. Oh, and we got the second hype train today.
With Kevin
Thank you.
gifting a sub to Gerber, and the hype chain is indeed here.
Thank you. All right, so let me work for this. There is this check that's obviously dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate candidate move, which is this, is a little ugly because of this. Right.
What's going on after rook takes f6?
Well, black needs to take, and then takes, and then what do we do here? I'm just playing a tempo.
Yeah, definitely. This position, you just need to evaluate it for me at the very end of the line.
Okay. I'm not even sure I'm playing this right, but this is definitely ugly.
So was it leading to mate then in the end though? After queen e8 rook takes f6?
I didn't find it. So okay, let me take a closer look. So I think I'm playing forced moves, right?
Yes, these are all forced moves. Here you have either king g8 or queen s7, so two options for black.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay. Actually, this doesn't look that awful with a queen f7.
Mm-hmm. Especially since your bishop c1, the move you made is protecting the h6 pawn.
Yeah, all right, so I can do this. But then I don't have a follow-up. I can go here and punch the pawns, but this is...
Careful with that king e8, careful.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
Yes, so instead of king e8, what would you play for black?
That should be... Okay, hold on. I don't even need to go there. I don't want to... I can't play this because of this. So this is probably the only move, right? I still, hold on, I still don't see what was wrong with king e8. So let me figure that out.
Sure. It's been a long session because I know you would spot this immediately if it was at the beginning.
All right, what am I missing here? I'm missing... yeah, oh yeah, duh, sorry. Sorry, yes, it has been a long session, true. All right, my bad. So I can't play that, and I can't play... So these two fields are bad. You need to play this.
Yeah, the dark square. So you're moving on f8, g7, f8, g7.
And And this bishop is surprisingly well protected here. I can... Hey, Varshap, thank you. Thank you for joining the stream. Incidentally, for the record, just... I think this holds the position, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Yes.
you know, this is the opposite color bishops. And let's assume white manages to gather 2 pawns.
Mm-hmm.
It's a draw with 2 pawns down. And for the record, and this is something that who watched me play, I'm actually famous for, you know, missing very simple tactics like the one I just missed. So anyway,
You wouldn't miss it if it wasn't after 3 hours.
fair enough, but yeah. Okay.
But well done. Queen 8 was the only move and wasn't played by the 2600 Grandmaster. So I want to show to the viewers as well how the game finished, if
Okay.
I can go back to that moment. But you saved it. Queen 8 would have saved the day. And it would have been a draw, but it didn't happen because black...
It's a scary move to play, Anna.
It is scary, I agree. And of course, like we were looking at rook takes f6, white could try to keep the queen on the board. It's not like it's a draw by perpetual. So the game can still continue, but that move holds. What doesn't hold is bishop d2. That's what... Oh, bishop d2. I'm trying to make the move on the board. This is what black played. And unfortunately for him, it didn't save the situation. How do you think white should continue? I know it's been a long session,
No. That's fine. Okay. All right. So
black resigns a few moves later. It's not something very immediate, but it's a
all
few
right. So
move
let's look at the
combination.
candidate. Let's look at candidate moves here. Candidate move number 1 is this check. Okay. And
Well,
I'm
thank you
actu-
so much for the bits. It's level 2 of the hype train.
And worship, my friend. Let me put it this way: I have. You are famous for stalemating twice. How many? You and I are gonna. If you ever come to my best losses, once I'm gonna show you some losses I made against the hand and brain team of Anna and Alexandra Botes. And how many queens have blundered in those games? You know, though. Please, this it comes with the game, and you are a very kind soul and a great friend of the game and myself, and it it's fine. So anyway.
So rook a8 is one of your candidate moves. What else do you consider
So
here?
sorry, yes, the rook a8 is one candidate moves. Why I like it, you don't have this check. Not that the check makes much of a difference. I can also play this. Oh, hold on a second. Is this a threat? I was looking at this.
I can't see right now on the board. Maybe it's because I drew arrows. I can't see now what you're showing.
Okay.
Can you draw now? Maybe I'm just not seeing the drawing. If you make a move, I always see the moves.
Okay.
Oh, now I see it. Yeah, sorry, I was drawing myself. So
No,
I see
no
rook
worries.
a8.
Thank you. So this is number 2.
Yes.
This is number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because after, that's actually interesting because he does have knight b8 if we give this check. Okay, and there is the option of playing this, and then when the king goes to g2, if this bishop is not there, the black can force the queen exchange, which may or may not be advantageous, but those are the tactical motives.
True.
Okay. All right, so let me unwrap this up. So this, oh, sorry. And what does the black white play? If he plays this is pretty ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's not an option. If he plays this, then we can actually take, and there will be, is there a mate here?
You can play those moves out if you want to. Yes,
Yeah.
so this is a different forcing line. The queen is not close enough to play queen f7.
Ah, yes, and there we go. Okay, good. So
Nice.
that's
Nicely
easy.
done.
That's not an option. So basically, that's not a candidate move. Thank you, guys. I honestly don't think I have ever seen two hype trains in one stream. That's very greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
You deserve it, Nikola, and also all the support from the chat. Thank you, guys.
All right. So basically, we cannot do this, and if we do this, then this probably wins immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So how does black respond to this? He has to do this. And then what do we do here? Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go. And we are going to gather the queen.
And if knight takes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, it's been a 3-hour session, I'm telling you.
Blindness. I thought knight was pinned.
But that idea works, so if king e7, you can make that work, I think.
Yeah,
or a similar pattern.
Yeah, I can do this. And if the king takes, then we can do this, and after this we do this, and I managed to lose myself. I'm sorry, Anna.
No, because I think you're winning there. King e7, queen g7, you're winning the rook. So all these lines, a bishop takes d7, king takes. You can also start with queen f7. Perhaps that's more accurate if you start with that checks. There's no king e6 later.
Okay, yeah, and that's or whatever. Yeah, okay.
And now you win the queen.
Now I'm winning the queen. Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good job. So I know it's been a long session.
No, that's fine. This was actually I expected a brilliant session, but this was better than what I expected. Thank you. So basically, the winning move was this.
Much. Yes, rook a8 check is one of the winning moves. So knight b8, rook takes b8, as you said, and if king e7, bishop takes d7. Another winning move. Actually, you listed all the winning moves when you said the candidate moves are, and you listed the 3 winning moves. So congratulations. I think rook a8 and bishop takes d7 perhaps. These two are the most straightforward, but rook e6 is also a winning move. In the game, bishop takes d7 was played, and after knight takes, now rook e6. So it's a combination of those two ideas because this is threatening mate in one. So queen a1 check happened, king g2, queen a8. The only move to protect the square on e8, the back rank mate. And after queen f5, king g8, rook e7, black resigned for obvious reasons, I think.
Yeah, there is no way to prevent mate. And there are actually there are like 4 different mates from this position, and there is no way to prevent them.
I love how you always see the different mates because it happened earlier with the queen a2, way earlier for black. Remember that mate idea? Exchange down for black, well, queen a2 and queen a1 was a threat, but queen c2 you added, that's also a mate threat. Because I kind of stop after I see one mate and I'm like, okay, that's enough. But no, it's good to know that queen f7, queen a7, queen, like there's so many squares that black would need to control that it's impossible that there is a defense. Impossible.
Okay. All right. So
What were
This
your
was a,
conclusions from this game, Nicola? I need to ask what were some of the most instructive moments for you from this game? Because I know it was a mess and very chaotic and complex.
um, if you don't mind, I'm actually just gonna walk through from. Oh,
Yeah, because also oftentimes it was difficult to understand what was played in the game and what was a sideline because I like to point out critical positions from
okay.
sidelines.
I'm just gonna, because I'm familiar with the theory here. This is actually the best, considered the best move in this position,
Hmm.
according to Chessable course.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't think I have ever played a3 in this position, but maybe I should.
This game seemed very easy for white, at least the advantage from the opening, but I don't know what's the best for black, really. This wasn't a good example for black.
I think what here, and I'm here analyzing a game by two 2600 plus grandmasters and making comments. I think this plan is too slow.
Mhm.
What black really needs to play here is bishop e7 and castle as fast as humanly possible.
Hmm.
Uh,
Possibly, because I think the position we reached after only 13, 14 moves was really promising already for white, the attack.
but that wasn't played, and this we're following the game now. I loved this, by the way. Thank you, Anna. This was like, who cares about the rook? Let's just go
Yes.
for it.
You said it immediately, that would be your move, and then when you calculated it, you were like, yeah, who cares
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. Who cares about the rook? Yeah, it's fine. And this is a very interesting
Yeah,
tactics.
remember King E7 instead of King takes F7? That was also
Yes,
important, where you realized how to take advantage of that position where we are not
yes,
winning the rook back.
yes. With the and I think we looked into several options, and then we finally concluded that playing Queen G4 was the best
Yeah,
option. So
yes,
yes,
very good.
and and I'm actually have to say, if there is one proud moment I have in this session, is that I spotted this tactical strike, which
You have spotted many, but you spotted this for the opponent, so you also played with the black pieces this game.
no, this is actually very typical for Sicilian positions
Yep.
that I apparently enjoy playing, and and this, so that this was an interesting position, because all of a sudden, where did this bishop go? And I understand that this needed to be defended, but I'm tempted to say that I would have left the bishop here
Mm-hmm.
and maybe played something different, like Queen D7
Mm-hmm.
or something else.
Yeah, also makes sense. We just didn't analyze
Yeah.
in that much depth.
And finally, the 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 evaluation of this position is the fact that all of a sudden after d5, the black has very significant counterplay. That was one of the amazing parts of the session.
Yeah, how it changed after this trade on F3 and pushing D5. So, um, objectively, the engine would still give advantage to white, but I think practically, black's chances has improved to a great extent.
Yes. Okay, and okay, then I have to say this is this was very hard.
Yeah, and bishop D4 we were looking at instead of king F1 and
Yes.
E5, queen G3. A lot of interesting lines there, but this happened in the game, and then bishop takes A3. I think was a bit too risky. That's where Danya joined us.
Yes. Yeah. No, that was, and the options of replacing, basically eliminate multiple threats by putting the bishop on g5 and on g5 and then doing rook e3. That wasn't actually. Did they play that? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, bishop a3 here, and this wasn't. Oh, sorry, I should have promoted. So this would have been the best line for white, and you
Okay.
found all these moves, and I think this would have won the game if white continued like this. Instead of bishop g5, white played queen g6 check. Sorry, it's not
Yeah, I see it
promoted.
here.
That's why John was always telling me, and I need to promote the line. Let
That's
me
fine.
promote it.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine.
Yeah,
The other line was more interesting.
yeah.
So
The other line I think is better. And here even white went for his bishop h6, which is too much. We were looking at, sorry, once again, not promoted, my fault. The piece sacrifice was accepted, and black should be better here, but still had to play a few more precise moves. Instead of bishop c1, queen d4, I think was the best, with the idea of bringing the bishop to c5. But this is all in the analysis that I'm going to send you in a PGN, so you can take a
thank
look
you.
at this the next day.
What's very interesting also is that the counter strikes that black was able to create and the mating threats that generated out of nowhere, the bishop on b4, battery with the queen of c3, and here a bishop c5. It's I can just I'm actually looking forward to seeing the computer evaluation of this position. It must looks like a Los Angeles earthquake chart because
Yeah, I did write in the annotations that now a few inaccurate moves follow. Well, this didn't even happen in the game, but even in the game line, bishop h6, and like it was just ups and downs. But in it shows how complex this position is even for super grandmasters.
uh,
But funny 600, depending on how you, well, very strong players. I know there's a debate on what's a super grandmaster, but 2600 is a very strong grandmaster.
okay.
Thank you so much, Nikola, for the session. I I was hoping we would have time at the end to play, but I didn't realize that this was such a complex game that it would take up all the time. But next time, if we finish the
All right.
analysis earlier, we
Well,
can also play against viewers if you'd like to.
sure. No, honestly, I have only one thing to do, and this is the song that
Oh,
Gerber Baby requested.
I forgot about it. I was like,
And
what have we forgot?
and I know that's the song you like. I think that's a fitting song to close out today's session. To be honest with you, I would thanks Gerber. That was a great song. And very honestly, if I were to play against viewers right now, I would probably lose every single game because I'm completely beat. This is actually honestly this was the opening I'm very familiar with, and this is also this is the type of positions that I apparently enjoy.
I'm glad, and I'm still glad that it was a test because many of the positions were just really chaotic and difficult to understand. So I'm happy that I made you work very hard.
You
because
made
that
me
was the
sweat.
goal.
Thank you.
I'm glad. I'll keep doing that if I have the permission to.
Of course, no. That's the whole point. It's. I think somebody was kind enough to post in chat that basically said that if you have exercised when your muscles ache. So my brain aches. That's actually very good. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us, and we're gonna listen to this lovely song from one and only Hasselhoff.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Gerber, for the song.
So this is the first in a series, and then I will reconvene in 1 week. Basically, Nikola Loves Chess will be a fixture on this channel at Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
I know how many courses you've studied
I
yourself.
have a
So
lot of courses. That's true. Okay. Okay. So the question here is, who do we raid? I don't think Anna is gonna stream anymore.
oh, my brain is also aching.
Yeah.
So I think we've done a good job here.
Yes. All right. So we can. We are gonna send you guys to the. Okay. Let's see. You're streaming, Lana. Let's raid Neil. What is your? Hold on. Are you streaming? You are actually not coming up here. Okay. Hold on. Oh, this is another version of West Virginia. Okay, let me stop that. Okay. All right. So we're gonna, since I can't, Neil, I'm gonna give you a raid. Happily give you a raid next time. I don't see your channel here. Let's see. Hold on. And yeah. All right. So I'm gonna send you guys to Chess Bras instead, and I'll DM and I'll promise you the next raid from the next channel. All right. So guys, thank you again. This was fabulous. Thank you for all the raids. Thank you for all the bits. Thank you, Anna, for a fabulous class. I'm looking forward to many more of those. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. That was wonderful. And my next stream is on Friday. It's a dream. It's basically a sub battle against photo chess, and I really need not to lose that one. So
I'm gonna be rooting for you, Nikola. I
Thank
know
you.
what's at stake.
Thank you. It's Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Apologies. We needed to make it something that works for both of us and EU friendly. So, all right. All right, guys. Bye. Thank you again. Thanks, Anna, again.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Nikola.
Okay. All right. So.